Alright, so we are now just 3 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft. So today we're going to be looking at the past 3 first overall picks. So we're going to start off in 2022, and although prior to the draft there weren't really any crazy names that stood out, there's still a couple of players that are able to make an impact in their rookie year. Now some of these included Kobe Bryant for the Seahawks, Reek Williams for the Seahawks, Sauce Gardner, and Aiden Hutchinson. However, none of those got selected number 1 overall. So who did get selected number 1 overall? Well, it was Travon Walker. So in 2022, I wasn't really able to keep up with the NFL as much as I would have wanted to. So that being said, to be honest, I haven't really heard much about Travon Walker. But to be honest, I think part of that is also because he didn't really perform the way a number 1 overall pick usually performs. Let's take a quick look at Travon. Now, Travon Walker is a defensive lineman coming out of Georgia, and he has all the attributes you could ask for in a pass rusher. He's big, he's strong, he has long arms, he's powerful, he's athletic, he's just a freak of nature. And that is the main reason why he got drafted number 1 overall. Now, someone that possesses all these attributes, you would expect him to perform on a different level. But unfortunately, in college, that wasn't really the case for Travon. If you look at his stats and if you watch tape of him in college, he was honestly like pretty mid. Like I said, he's a freak of nature, and that allows him to bull rush offensive linemen to get into the backfield. However, aside from that, he doesn't really have any good moves. But again, because of how physically gifted he was, and because of the amazing performance that he put up in the combine, this is a side note, but he actually performed really well in the combine. Like I said, he's fast, and he's also like a big, strong guy. So like his athletic to strength ratio is actually really good. So because of this, people saw him as an investment, a player that you could like mold into the player that you wanted him to be. And he has the potential to become one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. So that being said, if you get the right coaching and if you teach him the right techniques and everything, and if he could develop his other moves a little bit more, he would be elite. However, I don't know how comfortable I would be using my first overall pick on a project. Obviously, any player that you draft into the NFL is going to have to learn a lot, and it's going to be hard for him to get that transition into the NFL just because of how different college and the league are. However, there are some players that are just better equipped and better prepared for that. And to be honest, Travon Walker isn't one of those. I'm not saying Travon Walker is a terrible player. I think he is still good and he has potential to become even better. But as of right now, he just hasn't accomplished what people expected him to. So in retrospect, I think it would have been better to draft Aiden Hutchinson or honestly even Sauce Gardner at the number 1 pick over Travon Walker. He's still a young player though, so let's see what he can do with the rest of his career. Alright, so in 2023, we have a player that I have talked about in the past. I made a video about him. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. But 2023, number 1 overall pick is none other than Bryce Young. I've talked about Bryce Young a whole lot. I even mentioned him earlier on in this video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on him, especially because a lot of you guys already know what the situation with him is. But anyways, to give you guys a little recap and to help you understand why he got selected number 1 overall, let's take a look into his past. So ever since he was a kid, Bryce Young performed extremely well whenever he was on the football field. He started off his high school career in Cathedral High School, had success there, and then he transferred over to Mater Dei to up the competition. He wanted to play against better players, and the success continued over there as well. So he dominated his entire high school career. So that being said, he was really sought after coming into college, and his college career at Alabama lived up to the hype. Bryce Young had one of the best careers in college football history, and the peak of that was during that season. He finished with almost 4,900 passing yards, 47 passing touchdowns, and a passer rating of 167.5. As you can imagine, those numbers were enough for him to win a Heisman Trophy, and he was the first quarterback in Alabama history to win that award. So once he declared for the 2023 NFL Draft, he was the biggest news coming into the NFL. And what made the 2023 NFL Draft even more interesting was the rivalry that Bryce Young had with CJ Stroud. So CJ Stroud was honestly a close contender for that number 1 spot. His college career was also nothing less than amazing. And because of this, NFL fans across the country were torn between the two. That being said, Bryce Young got selected number 1 overall by the Carolina Panthers. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, the Carolina Panthers are probably the main reason why Bryce Young's career didn't unfold the way people expected it to. So obviously coming into the NFL, there was a lot of expectations regarding Bryce Young. People thought that he was going to come in and completely change, revolutionize the Carolina Panthers. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. In his rookie year, Bryce Young put up one of the worst performances as a rookie in NFL history. Like, his performance was honestly bad. Like, the Panthers were garbage. To be honest, 2024 started off much the same way. In fact, the beginning of 2024 was arguably worse than the entire 2023 season. His first 2 games were statistically worse than his prior season. So that being said, Bryce Young got benched for Andy Dalton and he stayed on the sidelines for a couple of games. However, Andy Dalton hurt himself in a car accident, and then Bryce Young was called upon as a starter. And to be honest, since he came back, he played pretty well. At the end of the season, he honestly had some really good games and put up some really great performances. So that leads to wonder what's going to happen in 2025. Is Bryce Young going to revive his career? Do you think he has what it takes to become a good NFL quarterback? Or do you think it's just going to be more of the same? He's just going to be a garbage player and that's going to be it for his career. Like I mentioned earlier, same as Trayvon Walker, people were looking at that draft in retrospect saying that they should have drafted CJ Stroud. Bryce Young's NFL career hasn't panned out the way people wanted it to, or even probably the way he thought it would. But like I said before, I think there's still hope for Bryce Young, so I guess we're going to see what happens in the 2025 NFL season. Alright, so that leaves us with our most recent number 1 overall pick. Selected first overall in 2024 NFL draft was Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is one of those guys that since he was a kid, all he ever wanted to do was play football. He wanted to become one of the best football players of all time, if not the best. His dedication to the game was honestly insane. He's been working out ever since he was a kid, before school, after school. He even moved to an apartment that was right beside his high school so he can spend less time traveling and more time training. All of these efforts paid off for him. After putting up over 2,600 passing yards with 26 passing touchdowns and almost 400 rushing yards with 10 rushing touchdowns, and leading Gonzaga High School to their first championships in 2002, Caleb Williams was named the 2018-2019 Gatorade Player of the Year. His performance in high school was honestly great. He even participated in the renowned Elite 11 training camp where he won MVP. So most sources would rank him at a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, except for ESPN, who has him a 4-star. And to be honest, that's one thing I've noticed. Every single time I'm doing research for a video, everyone has all these top players ranked 5 stars, 5-star, 5-star, and then ESPN is always downballing. ESPN is always ranking them 4 stars. Like, bro, what's up with you guys? You guys, like, honestly just haters. 9 out of 10 doctors recommend. ESPN, you're that one doctor. And I don't know what's up with you guys. You need to fix up. Anyways, that being said, coming out of high school, he was so sought after. Almost every college across the country had offered him a spot on their team. That being said, he ended up committing to Oklahoma. Despite his high school performance, he started off his career behind Spencer Rattler at quarterback. However, this honestly wouldn't last too long. Early on in the season, they had a game against Tennessee where they were down 28-7 to start the second quarter. And Spencer Rattler was honestly like not playing well at all. Oklahoma decided to go for it on 4th and 1, and this led to a 66-yard touchdown run by Caleb Williams. However, this touchdown wasn't enough to spark the team, and Spencer Rattler ended up getting benched a couple of minutes after. And this is the start of Caleb Williams' famous college career. As soon as he got into the game, he completely took over. Completely. The game switched in an instant. The Sooners ended up winning the game 55-48, and Caleb Williams had over 200 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Since that day, he pretty much took over as the team's starting quarterback, and he finished the season with almost 2,000 passing yards with 21 passing touchdowns, over 400 rushing yards with 6 rushing touchdowns. The Sooners were so excited to have Caleb Williams as their starter. However, that joy wasn't going to last very long. After their head coach, who recruited Caleb Williams in the first place, accepted an offer at USC, the young quarterback decided to follow him there. He decided to transfer. So a lot of times what happens when you join a different team, it takes you a while to get adjusted to their play style. Even though the head coach is the same, everything else like the environment, the defense or whatever, like there's just so many things that change and you need to adapt to that. So a lot of times people are slow in their first season with a new team. This was most definitely not the case for Caleb Williams. He finished the season with over 4,500 passing yards with 42 passing touchdowns, which led the FBS, as well as almost 400 rushing yards with 10 rushing touchdowns. Because of this performance, not only did he win a Heisman Trophy, but he got so many offers, so many NIL deals from so many big companies across the country. He got offers from Dr. Pepper, from Wendy's, from Beats, from PlayStation, and it's reported that he made around $10 million from these deals. This guy became a millionaire before he even played a single NFL snap, before he even finished his college career. That's wild to me. That's insane. His junior year wasn't on the same level, but he still played really good. Now, everything seems perfect with Caleb Williams so far, but there are some things that people don't really like about him. The main thing is his attitude. People don't really like his attitude. This goes from him holding off from declaring for the NFL draft until the last possible day, to his dad making some questionable comments, saying something like, oh, it's not fair that if he gets drafted first overall, he has to play for a team. Sorry, for a bad team. And even going as far as to say that if he got drafted by a bad team, he could just go back to school and just wait for next year's draft. So it's just like a lot of like off-field stuff that people didn't really like. And Caleb Williams is also a very emotional guy. Now, he's been infamously seen crying after games, and as you can imagine, people online didn't really take that too well. People are like, you can't be a leader on a football team and just cry whenever you lose a game, which to be fair, like I understand, but I also understand if he's passionate about it. But yeah, there's just like a lot of like off-field stuff that people don't like. But despite this, he was still selected number 1 overall in the 2024 NFL draft by the Chicago Bears. And getting drafted by Chicago, to be honest, is exactly what his dad feared would happen. Chicago obviously isn't the best team in the NFL, and Justin Fields suffered under center playing for that organization. But Chicago thought that if they brought in a Heisman winner, things could change. Unfortunately for them, that didn't happen. Caleb Williams had a really mediocre performance in his first NFL season, and this led to a lot of people saying that he was never destined to be an NFL player to begin with. The reason why people are saying this is that although he had an amazing career in college, as I mentioned earlier in the video, college and the NFL are two completely different play styles. It's just two completely different worlds, you know? You just can't compare the two. So there's certain things that you can do in college that you can't necessarily get away with in the NFL. A perfect example of that is Caleb Williams just holding onto the football for way too long. In college, you can get away with holding the ball for 5-6 seconds. In the NFL, 3 or 4 seconds sometimes is too much. So that being said, he was just holding on for the ball for so long in 2024 that he ended up taking a stupid amount of sacks. He got sacked so many times. In fact, it was number 3 all time in sacks taken in an NFL season. Number 3 all time. He was just 8 sacks away from tying the record for most sacks ever taken in an NFL season, which is honestly wild. And then also just not being able to identify what the defense is doing. People are saying that Caleb Williams just doesn't know how to read NFL defenses. He's unable to detect the blitz, he's unable to understand if they're playing man coverage or if they're playing zone, and all of this stuff leads to him either throwing interceptions or more commonly, him taking sacks like I just said. And on top of that, you add to the fact that Caleb Williams just can't throw deep. It's kind of bad. All right, listen to this. Caleb Williams' completion percentage, his accuracy percentage for passes 20 yards and over is 19%. This guy's completing 19% of his passes 20 yards or more. You're saying over 80% of your passes are incomplete? That's a wild stat. And as you can imagine, he's last in the league in that regard. To give him the benefit of the doubt, the Chicago Bears offensive line is pretty bad, but that doesn't excuse some of the decisions that he makes on the field. In 2024, he has some pretty good wide receivers on his team, so it's not like Bryce Young, who in his first NFL season had absolutely no one to help him. In Chicago, Caleb Williams does have options, and although his offensive line isn't that bad, he shouldn't be performing as poorly as he is. So yeah, 2024 hasn't been a good season for Caleb Williams, so I guess we'll see what happens in 2025. So anyways, looking back at the last 3 first overall picks, you can honestly argue that all 3 of them have been busts. Caleb Williams, I think most people would say that he is. Bryce Young, people used to say that he is. He might be making a comeback, but he's still in that, like, on the bust side, you know? And then Travon Walker, like, honestly just hasn't really done anything. So I guess considering that he was number 1 overall, I guess you can consider that a bust. All 3 just haven't been performing the way people expect them to perform. Is it because they're bad players, or is it because, like Caleb Williams' father said, they're just going to bad teams? Like, are you just doomed to fail if you're going to a bad team? That's not necessarily the case. There's so many players that get drafted first overall that have an amazing career in the NFL. Yes, your environment and your circumstances has an impact on your career as a football player, but like a lot of it is just you as a player. How can you become a good NFL player? There's one thing, like I said, to dominate in college, that's one thing. But then to dominate in the NFL or to be good in the NFL, you just need to do so much work to catch up and to get on that level. So we'll see if these 3 players in the next couple years can become that, if they can become good NFL starters, if they can become reliable football players, if they can become as good or at least good enough in comparison to what they were in college. In 2025, I don't know who's gonna get selected first overall. The Titans do have the number 1 pick right now. They are in need of a quarterback, so that's what would make more sense. The only thing that people are wondering is who's gonna get selected. Is it gonna be Cam Ward, or is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? Both quarterbacks have completely different play styles. Cam Ward is a risk taker. He likes going for the big play. Like, he's able to keep plays alive. He's able to do crossbody throws, kind of like Patrick Mahomes does. Like, he's that kind of player. And then Shedeur Sanders, like, he's more like of an accuracy in pocket, like traditional quarterback type of player, you know what I mean? So it honestly just depends on what Tennessee is looking for and like what the Tennessee Titans roster for 2025 is going to look like. I think that's what's going to dictate who they pick with the number 1 overall pick. It just kind of depends on the identity they want to have as a team. I think one issue though with Shedeur Sanders is people complain a lot about his arrogance. People don't really like his off-field or on-field attitude. And to be honest, like I don't have a problem with players being confident. I don't see that as an issue necessarily. A lot of fans are just worried that his antics are gonna cost the team. He's gonna be drafted to Tennessee, right? He's gonna play on a team that's just not good. Someone that thinks they're so good, and don't get me wrong, he is good, but like someone that like has such confidence in themselves, put him in a situation like Tennessee where they're like losing repetitively, like they're gonna be losing and losing and losing. At least that's probably what's gonna happen. And like, how is he gonna be able to handle that? I think people are scared that he's gonna be like Jimmy Butler. I don't think he's anywhere near Jimmy Butler, and I don't think Jimmy Butler is necessarily in the right or in the wrong. Like, I don't really know basketball, so I don't know. I just know people don't like his attitude, and I think that's what's gonna happen with Shedeur Sanders. I think people are scared that if he gets drafted and like they start losing, he's gonna start complaining and like it's gonna bring the team morale down, and then this and then that and then and it's just gonna not end up being a good idea. So I think the safer option in terms of that would be Cam Ward, but Cam Ward is also riskier like when it comes to actually playing football. Either you have stability on the field and instability outside of the field, or you have stability outside of the field and instability on the field. So it's like, pick your poison. Choose what you want to do. I don't know what you guys think the Tennessee Titans should do. I don't necessarily know who's going to be first overall pick. If you guys have any theories, any ideas, make sure to leave it in the comments and let me know what you guys think. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. A little bit different this time around. We are doing some NFL draft stuff, seeing as though the draft is coming up. If you have any ideas on videos I should do regarding the NFL draft or just football players in general, make sure to leave it in the comments and I will get back to you guys as soon as possible. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, help us grow, and keep doing everything that you guys are doing. I appreciate the support. I'll see you guys on the next one.